All right, this will be the third edition of the Balsam Podcast.
And this podcast has been brought to you by Lowell Pump.
I'm Justin.
I'm Roderick.
And I'm Matt.
And let's get started. What do we have to talk about today?
Well, I think the first thing we're going to talk about is just kind of this idea of self-help and bettering yourself and just not feeling sorry for yourself about doing bad things, but actually just trying to change it instead. So I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I know, Roderick, that one quote we had seen recently that we thought really made us think about that topic. You're pulling it up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good quote, just about, people. It was, you can't keep doing shitty things and then feel bad about yourself like that makes it okay. You need to be better. And I feel like that kind of made us think about just the topic of, people bettering themselves, and maybe certain people who feel sorry for themselves and try to get sympathy even though they're not doing anything to better themselves.
Yeah.
And people being too accepting of people just talking about it, I guess, because people see people feeling pity for themselves and they're just oh, okay, well, they're gonna better themselves. This is okay, but then they don't actually make the action to do it.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest thing is just people being just selfishness, just people being complacent with where they are in their lives, and just wanting people to feel sorry for them, the world owes them something, instead of just actually trying to be a better person and being better to the people around you and things like that. So.
Yeah, just these people who know that what they're doing is wrong, but as long as people are giving them the benefit of the doubt for feeling bad about it, really, I mean, it's kind of just as much of the fault of the people who let them feel that way, because then it kind of gives them the assurance that, okay, it's okay to be this way as long as I feel this way about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to say it's kind of like a two-person job. They can't settle to just keep being shitty, and the people that they're being shitty to, or the people that witness their actions, can't just settle and keep letting it happen.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is most people don't have the balls to say something to somebody whenever they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, or whenever they're keep complaining about it and want you to have pity for them.
People aren't assertive enough.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue with it, and I think it just demonstrates complacency with those people as well, not wanting to be the type of person that pushes the people around them to be better people.
Just don't want to step out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Don't want to step on any toes. Don't want to make anybody feel bad or something. I don't know, something like that maybe. Yeah,
there's a Bible verse, I forget what it is, but it basically says that iron sharpens iron. So that if you're not if you don't meet someone on their level, then nothing's ever gonna change. If somebody's having a moment of self-pity or something like that about not changing and wanting to change and never does anything about it, then you have to be willing to call them out on their bullshit, basically. So
calling them out doesn't see that they'll change, but it's definitely more possible that you've seen some difference as opposed to just staying quiet, and then at least even if they don't change, then you at least did your part.
Yeah, and at least know where somebody stands on it, rather than just thinking everything's just fine.
Yeah. People don't like, people don't like confrontation, I think, in general. So just the act of confronting somebody will, at the very least, make them think about their actions twice next time.
It'll definitely make an impact, no doubt.
So whether or not they actually change in the long run, but even just in the short term, it might help a little bit. And the hope is, I guess, that there's little moments will sort of create a cascade effect, and it'll just kind of tumble down, and into like this big, but basically like, I don't know, kind of like spiral into, you know, kind of the better person that they want to be.
Right.
Like change, like a compounding effect of change, basically. So.
Yeah. Like, let's say somebody is, I don't know, just like a very toxic person, and they just very negatively affect the people that they surround themselves with. Like, to what extent do you think they really can change? You know what I mean? Like, if that's just what they are and what they've stood for, let's say, years and years, like what do you think? Do you think they can really flip that around and be a good, non-toxic person, or what?
I think with some people, they just don't know any other way to act.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on the person, obviously, but...
Then for some people, they might even, in their brain, see it as just normal behavior. And
well, a lot of people aren't fortunate to have decent enough parents, too.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, I think all of us have had pretty decent parents.
Right, for sure.
In that aspect. And so, like, a lot of people just don't learn from a young age, like, you know, how to treat people and how to interact with people in a positive way.
We all grew up with, like, two parents, too.
Yeah, that's true.
Having a lack of one parent can result.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm sure just like what you're surrounded with as a kid.
Yep.
Like once you grow up and maybe that's become a part of who you are, you just, like you said, you don't know any other way to be, and you're just kind of stuck in this spot where you're like, I mean, maybe you're like, I want to be better, but how or something.
Yeah.
Maybe like something sometimes like maybe a parent that had like a bad experience in the past that kind of like maybe like lost trust in like people in general, like they might like pass that on to their kid, and then like their kid grows up like, you know, with this whole like idea of like they can't trust anyone and they always have to be on the defensive, and like feel like the world is like, you know, against them. And so I think some people grow up with that attitude. They're not taught to be, you know, like self-confident, and, you know, they're just not taught to be individuals.
Yeah.
They're taught to, you know, always be on the defensive, and I don't know, just it can turn into someone who's it can make some pretty terrible people, basically.
And while like that definitely doesn't condone like any negative things that they do throughout their life, it's good to be enlightened on why they are the way that they are.
Yeah.
Like then like it can just kind of make sense to a degree, like why they would be mad or why their behavior is the way that it is.
So in what ways do you think someone in a position like that can be better?
I think they have to have a moment of self-actualization.
Yeah.
They have to have a moment of like a singularity, like moment like of self-awareness, where they like realize that no one likes them.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't change, then they're just gonna go through their life alone. So
and like going through stages of maturity as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think other than that, I can't see any.
I definitely believe it can happen. Like
certainly, other than unless somebody realizes it for themselves, I don't think that.
Yeah, they have to realize it.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to change. I think that's the only circumstance in which somebody's actually going to change.
Right, and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because the people around you can tell you anything, but if you're brought up with this idea that, you know, you have to be on the defensive all the time, then what people say to you isn't going to mean anything.
Yeah.
So
this is just like any personal like change or transformation you can make in life. You have to just have the motivation to do it.
Yeah.
You can have like the positive influences that could potentially help, but in the end, it's just still like all up on you, all up to you.
Yeah. Like I know when I think of that, just that whole thing, it just makes me think of like people, you know, trying to change like their health or something, or trying to like lose weight, right, or something like that. Like I know, like just for me personally, like a few years ago, I didn't like work out or care about what I ate or anything. I was like, up to like 185. That was my weight. And I know at one point I just kind of like weighed myself or something, and I was like, you know what? This kind of feels like a crossroads. Like I can either keep doing what I'm doing and probably be somewhat obese in the future, or I can work to be healthier and work out and maybe eat a little better and turn the other way. And that was definitely like my moment of realization. Like, okay, time to do better. And I feel like obviously that can probably translate to some extent to what we're talking about, just like people's behaviors.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't apply to just, you know, one specific area. It applies to pretty much anything.
Oh, yeah.
People want to change a specific thing in their life. And it doesn't have to be like, you know, being fat doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't just have to be like like you're a bad person, you want to become a good person.
It can be anything you want to become.
It can be, basically.
Like if you just want to be better, even if you're already pretty decent.
Exactly, yeah.
Apply it to school, like maybe you're like a lazy student, doesn't study, doesn't do their homework.
Yeah.
Too busy goofing off, and then you have to like, come to that self-realization, like, I need to get on my shit.
Yeah, well that's actually that's like the premise of like kind of the message that Jordan Peterson has, is like, if you want to change, then like start small. Like you can just start by like cleaning up your room, and like you see how that like can affect the people around you. And because like if you live in a house full of like messy people, then like maybe if you clean your room and like one of your family members sees that, maybe that'll like kind of, you know, spark something in them and cause them to maybe do the same thing or something like that.
I guess with anything like that, the one thing that would kind of deter people from wanting to make a change would be just the thought of it being overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's definitely part of it. Just starting slow and being like, all right, I can do these small things to work toward my goal. And, you know, once you do those small things, I mean, it will become easier as you go.
Yeah, definitely.
That's just with anything.
I think like, like you said, pretty much anything, that can apply to pretty much anything, like losing weight. Like I know my family, like certain members of my family like have been wanting to lose weight for a while and haven't seen a lot of results, and I'm just like, well, I mean, and they've tried like different diets and like cleanses and like all this stuff, and I'm like, none of this stuff is going to work unless you have it in yourself that this is something that you're going to do, and that you actually sit down and like, put your mind to it.
Like, do they just like come up with an idea and like try it once and then stop?
Exactly. They try it and they don't get results, and then they just stop.
Yeah, it's like the kind of thing where they're like, I see the goal. I want to get there. Yeah. So they're just like, oh, this is like something that people do, like, oh, it's supposed to be easy or whatever, and then they do it and they're like, I don't like this, and then they give up. Yeah. No, I know exactly that kind of thing. Like it's, and that just makes me think of people, and you know, it kind of goes back to what like the quote we were saying at first, like you can't just feel sorry for yourself, or whatever, because like I know sometimes I'll see things with people who are trying to lose weight or whatever, and they'll just be like, oh, you know, look at me, I'm doing this, I've lost this much, I'm in the gym, like look at me, like look at what I'm doing. And it's like, well, you know, the fact that you're doing this probably means that you're just trying to get people to like congratulate you. And it's like at that point you're next thing you know, you're going to be back to your horrible habits, because you're just trying to get people to say like, good for you, I'm proud of you, and then you'll have that like, you'll feel good about yourself, then you'll just drop it or something.
I think it was
one of the negatives of social media.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was like Mark Cuban. No, maybe it was Donald Trump. I think it was Donald Trump that he tried to make a similar TV show to Shark Tank, like that Mark Cuban is on. And so like and like he failed at it. And Mark Cuban sent him a letter and was basically like just like tore him apart and was like, you know, like your show failed, and it's kind of like making fun of him. And he like, Trump like framed that like letter and like used that as motivation, and like now he's the president, so
he's 45.
45. But yeah, that's kind of like, you need something to like be your motivation.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's a good way to do it. Like,
Yeah.
put up on your wall like
Yeah.
criticism that you've
Yeah.
gotten.
Yeah.
Because really, with enough determination, really anybody can do really just about anything. I mean, that's really
Pretty much.
true within reason.
Yeah.
And obviously, criticism will deter many from doing things such as that. But I mean, if you're, I guess strong enough and secure enough and like really want it enough to use that criticism as motivation, I mean, that's definitely the way to reach goals. I wouldn't.
That's
doubt.
like,
Right.
there's this thing that people do, like, where they sort of like brag about not being good at math. And it really just gets on my nerves. It's like, oh yeah, like, I'm not good at math. I've never been good at math. And I'm like, well, first of all, that's not a good thing. Like, you don't have to be a math genius, but like, you should be able to at least like comprehend basics. Second of all, if you want to be good at math, just work at it. Just like with
do
anything,
math.
Just like anything else.
Math is a skill that can be developed.
It's not
Just
like an innate talent.
Yes, no, you're not like born with the innate ability to do math. Like,
Yeah.
it's a skill and a subject to be learned, just like anything else.
Literally anything else.
Yeah.
That just, I feel like that goes with almost any.
It does.
Just people like
Yeah.
say, I can't do this, or I can't,
Yeah.
like I always hear it with people who are like, I can't draw. I'm like,
Just practice.
sure you can.
I
Like, you just don't draw. That's
Yeah.
all it is.
I remember I used to look at instrument playing as some like intimidating thing.
Yeah.
But now I have Matt's ukulele that I strum on like often, and it's like I've gotten better at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen overnight. Like, as someone, like, I've had a lot of different hobbies growing up. Like, I learned how to do a lot of different things. And I can say, like, you just have to practice. Like, it doesn't happen
And then don't get mad at yourself
overnight. Like,
Don't get mad at yourself if you like screw up and you make it sound the way you don't want it to sound, because like
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
you're not doing it to impress anyone. You're just working on
yeah.
it.
And I think some people have this unrealistic view of perfection that they want to attain. And they have to realize that even, like, whatever it may be, whatever skill or craft or whatever it is, whatever goal they may be trying to reach, there are masters that have done these things for their entire lives
Right.
and still make mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, my math professors make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
And they've been studying.
Nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, and they've been, like, I think that can be said about anything. Like, that masters, I mean, they still make mistakes. Yeah, I mean, so perfection is not, is not ideal. It's not realistic.
I know something that people do that I find myself doing is they want to sound or make their art look a lot like people that they idolize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the thing, like,
But you have to realize that you have your own
Yeah.
sound.
people
Yeah.
starting out at something and they compare their like novice abilities because they just begun with
Yeah.
the, like you said, like basically masters of the same thing, and it's like
Yeah.
you can kill yourself doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's the way to discourage yourself right away.
Exactly, yeah. You have to know where you're at and what level you're at. And be okay with where you're at, but still be striving, to do
Right.
better.
And another thing, not everybody has to be good at everything. Like,
No.
if you want to like play the guitar or something, and you just want to be like all right at it and just be able
Yeah.
to play a few songs, and
That's exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, no, that was exactly my view of playing the guitar. Whenever I first started learning, I was like, I'm not trying to be a master at it. I just want to be able to like pretty much look up like basic chords for any song that I want to learn how to play
Yeah.
and be able to play it. Like,
And then maybe you won't be a master at the guitar in general, but you can be a master at the songs that you want to
yeah,
learn,
that's true. Yeah,
which is what I'm working towards the ukulele. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, it applies to anything, and I think you just have to have some reason to be motivated, because unless you have a reason to be motivated, then it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to
or
happen
like
for you.
when I tell people that like I work out regularly or something, they're like, "Oh, you do that, man? I wish I had that for myself." And just like,
You could.
You can't.
Or I wish I had time. Like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
You have time. You
Yeah,
still
you can
have the
make time.
motivation.
It's where your priority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, like, when people say they don't have time, you know, some people may mean it, but, like, yeah, like you just said, it's not necessarily that you don't have time. It's just, like, you're prioritizing other things beyond.
And at that point, you don't have time. But
So-
if your priority list was different, you'd
Exactly.
have time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can make time if you just bumped it up on your priority list. Pretty much. If you made it up, like, I think pretty much anybody, you know, could wake up maybe even like half an hour earlier and just work out for half an hour. Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be like a 2-hour workout. Like, work out for half an hour, 45 minutes, something like that.
But prioritize that extra sleep over that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's just, you know.
It's just how bad do you want it? Or like the self-discipline.
Yep. And
One thing you said that was interesting was you mentioned that, like, everyone has like an original, like, you know,
Yeah, their own sound.
they have like their own like sound or whatever you want to call it.
oh yes, for
And
sure.
like that's a lot of I think that's a big problem with like our education system is like we're taught to learn things and memorize things, but like
Everyone has a
we're
different
not-
way of learning.
everyone has a different way of learning, but even beyond that, we're not teaching people to be innovators and to like come up with original ideas. We're just teaching people to learn ideas that have already been thought of.
that's a great point.
true.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not teaching people to be innovators, essentially. That's why. Well, that's probably not the whole reason, but at least part of the reason why, you know, there are so few people that come up with like new inventions and come up with new ideas. It's because we're not teaching people to do that. We're teaching people to learn things that other people, and that's fine. Like, that's perfectly acceptable. I think we should learn things that other people have thought of, but it needs to be, you know, that needs to be like in the background. And I think the primary focus should be on, you know, having people come up with their own ideas, their own solutions.
Right, because
problems and
we're
things
here
like that.
for a reason. Is
Exactly.
to like, build on what
Yeah.
our ancestors
Yeah.
have thought of and
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
and done.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like Einstein. You know, they had Newtonian physics.
yeah.
But then when Einstein came along, they just assumed that Newtonian physics applied to everything. And then like Isaac Newton, I think, was alive in like the 1600s or something like that. Einstein didn't come along until like 300 years later, and he was the first man in like 400 years, whatever, half a millennium essentially, to figure out, hey, his laws don't apply to everything. They apply to a lot of things, but they don't apply to these certain cases, you know, where like you're traveling really close to the speed of light, or when
Right.
objects are like as small as atoms, then those laws break down. And so he was the first man to figure that out. And the problem was that like everyone just assumed that, like, you know, somebody else already figured it out, so like we'll just assume that it works for everything. Well, that wasn't the case. So, and now because of Einstein's work, we have like GPS and, you know, like working communication systems and things like that. That's just like an example of, you know, people like just assuming that the things that we have should work and work for everything, which is not always the case.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I guess like just somebody having like the willingness to really
Yeah.
go out there like in front of the world and
Yeah.
be like, I think I can do this better. I think I
Yeah.
have like a better way to explain this.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
like string theorists are finding places where Einstein's theories
Yeah.
break down.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so, like, you know, his theories apply to a lot of cases, but they're not universal. And so that's why, like, string theorists are, like, finding cases where even his theories break down. So you have to, like, you know, I think that issue needs to be resolved because it's a big one. So, yeah, I just thought that's what it made me think of whenever you said that.
Probably an issue that it doesn't seem like too many people would think about.
Yeah, no, because people are just robots, essentially. People are just asleep.
Sometimes, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, it's amazing
People
how
are
like,
slaves to their phone.
That's a conversation right there.
Yeah.
We might have to save that for another podcast.
We'll save that. We could save that for
that's like that's a whole big
topic. We can save that.
That's what it made me think of when you said the thing about I'm losing weight.
Yeah.
Like let me put it on social media so people can congratulate me.
Yeah, we could save that for another podcast, but it certainly is a interesting topic. But I mean, people just want to go about their lives. They just want to do their daily routine and not think about anything else. I think the problem is that like people are just looking for ways to relieve their anxiety, and that's all they care about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like they don't want to ever step outside of their comfort zone and push themselves. They're just looking for ways to, and that's not like that's like an evolutionary trait, but like
just ways to like get by and like fit into the world, basically. Yeah.
I feel like when you do step out of your comfort zone, you could really defeat anxiety. Though.
Yeah, well, that's like the whole idea of like exposure therapy in psychology is like for people who have like OCD and things like that. Like I remember in psychology class freshman year, we watched a video of this woman who had like extreme OCD. And she had like plastic and everything covering her couches, and she had to like when she was in the kitchen, she had to like wash her hands like 10 times like every like minute.
Just like a germaphobe type thing.
Yeah. She was like extreme germaphobe, and like she was afraid to go out and check the mail because she didn't want to bring in like germs from outside. And one of the things
it's terrifying to live that
way.
And
one of the things that they did to like help her was exposure therapy, where they handed her like a piece of mail from her mailbox. And they just told her to like touch her couch with it, and so that like they started there, and then eventually it got to the point where she was like taking this like letter and just like rubbing it all over her couch, so like it helped her a lot. And so that's like the thing about like
slowly introduce her to it.
Yeah, like that's the thing about like your anxieties. You just have to expose yourself to it over and over again.
Like just step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
and just like kind of like the idea of like facing your fears, basically.
Yeah. Essentially.
There's like a metaphobia where it looked like the fear of vomiting. I remember like reading something about that. It was like
just like being afraid to like throw up yourself or see other people do it.
It was actually like both. Like you're afraid to throw up yourself, or you're like worried like other people are gonna throw up around you, or it kind of in some cases it's similar to what you said about like being a germaphobe. Like you're afraid to like touch or anything, like with the fear of getting sick and like catching like some type of disease. And I can't remember what the thing was called. It was like something that they give the person to like make them throw up, and like show them that like vomiting is survivable.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Oh, you're talking about the syrup of ipecac or whatever?
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah.
What is it?
Syrup of ipecac?
What is it?
I guess it's something that they take and like it'll make
it induces vomiting.
Oh, it just makes you. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like the medical use is like if you consume like something poisonous
or something,
then you can give them that and they'll throw it up. It just forces people to throw up. That's certainly interesting. That really just like that bothers me. And like what's really funny is like if you go and like this is an example that shows you how like people are conformed to their ways, or how conformed people are to their ways. If you go into like an elevator and like turn the opposite direction that everyone else is standing,
they'll
try to get away from you.
Oh, because
you're like
different.
Because you're different. Like you're not like.
They'll be like, "What's wrong with this guy?"
Yeah, they're like you're not conforming to the.
And people don't even realize that they do it. But
exactly.
Conformity can be an interesting thing. It really can.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I guess, kind of like the mob mentality too.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Like how different people act like in mobs as opposed to like individually.
Oh yeah,
fucking mob hate.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like hating on a person just because like they see everyone else doing it and they can't give a logical reason. Like just going with what everyone else does.
Oh yeah, that's really annoying.
Yeah, I hate it. And there's so many examples that I can think of with that.
That's such an issue with like politics, I think, especially because people don't do their research.
Because nowadays politics is just like two opposing teams or something.
Yeah, it's tribalism.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's like that's just an example, but
of
how people like I don't know people just go with the crowd. Like,
then there's another example these days that I think of, but
like I think of like the year that the Panthers like went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, like
there were so many bandwagon Panther fans that year.
Oh yeah, like
that were never like
bandwagon fans in sports is a great example.
It is,
because it's like, oh, this like team that's like represented by our area, or like, oh, they're doing good. Like I better get on this so I don't get some sort of something out of it, or just because everybody else is doing it. It's like I don't want to.
Like I
have to be a part of this, even though I don't care about this.
Yeah. It's like that whole year, like.
Ugh. I didn't like that at
I
all.
watched a few games just like to see if I could get myself into football. I've never really been into football or watching it.
Yeah.
I watched a few games that year. I still couldn't like get myself into it, but like, and I was like, yeah, this just isn't for me. And then I didn't watch another game until the Super Bowl, and then
that was the
like,
worst game of all time. Anyway, just like as somebody who is a fan of the Panthers, like I know that year, it's just like it's just annoying because like. One thing about sports and like sports fans in general is like, you know, when a team is doing really good, obviously bandwagon fans will naturally come, and it's like then all of a sudden you go from like I guess like fans of the team and kind of like the culture around the team, it goes from feeling like, oh yeah, this is my team, this is cool, like you know, maybe they're doing good or not so good or whatever, but then all of a sudden when they're doing great, it's like people hate the team.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like it just feels bad. Like being a fan, it just kind of feels bad because it's like not only are there these people who are basically like faking liking them, it's like people are hating them because of that and rooting against them and hating the players because they're like coming to prominence and like you know making a big deal that they're having a good time. Like I know one big thing with the Panthers that year was like. I know, like Cam Newton was like doing the dab and everything.
Oh yeah,
that's and like the team was just having fun. Like they were just having fun with it, and people were just like shitting all over. Like you can't like we hate that. We can't stand that you're having a good time.
Yeah,
like
I hate that crap.
Yeah,
and it's like just let them have a good time. And then they got killed in the Super Bowl.
Well, it's pretty obvious that like just from the few games I watched that year, Cam was definitely like he was a showman. Like 100%. He was just trying to like,
and that's just who he is.
He was just trying to put on a good show for the crowd.
That's just who. That's a point of professional sports.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, you gotta go about your job and like you know you gotta do it and then get out. You know,
it's crazy.
You gotta clock in, play football like a man, and get out. You can't have fun.
I know, it's crazy. Like, where's the where's the spirit? Like. Where's the spirit?
And the Panthers had the spirit.
Yeah.
And then they just God. But anyway, that was a tangent. Anyway.
That was an interesting tangent.
That
was pretty cool.
Well, no, that was good though, because like I mean, definitely it is a perfect example of the idea of conformity. Like, and I mean, it happens with musicians too. Like musicians, it happens with TV shows, like things like that. Like,
oh my God.
It happens with pretty much anything. Like, that's why pop music is pop music, because it like you hear a song on the radio, like they play the top 100, like they play the Billboard 100 over and over again if you listen to pop music radio.
To be like,
and then
put it in people's
minds.
And
then it like gets it ingrained within people's minds, and then they share it with their friends, and then like everybody in a group of friends like likes the song, and then if you don't like the song, then like you're an outcast, and then and it just like spreads, and then like all of a sudden you have like this song like Gangnam Style that has like 3 billion views on YouTube. Like I think Baby by Justin Bieber has over 1 billion views, and like Despacito has like over 2 billion views. It's you get to the point where like the more popular it gets, the more popular it's going to continue to get. So
and I can relate so hard to that thing you said about if you don't like this mainstream pop shit, you're an outcast. Like people ask me, have you heard this new Drake song?
Who cares?
No, I don't care about that. And I'll say like what I listen to, and then they'll look at me like I'm weird or some shit, or I'll like name I'm not even gonna go into metal. I'm like if I name like a rapper that they haven't heard of or something, they'll think it's like weird automatically because it's not popular.
Is it some weird underground shit or something?
What's Puyo? What's Ghostman? I'll tell you, it's way better than that mainstream shit that comes on the radio.
Well, the thing about like pop music is like I don't care if it's like, I'm not gonna hate it just because it's pop music. If I like a pop song, I like a pop song.
Yeah.
But by the same token, if I don't like a pop song, I'm just not gonna like it. Like I love Taylor Swift's music, and she's one of the most popular artists of all time.
Yeah.
Like, but I love, like, her music is great. Like, I like Ed Sheeran too. Like, both of those are like two of the most popular people, two of the most popular musicians, and like I love their music. But there's like a ton of other popular musicians who like I don't like at all. So it's like I don't really care if it's a pop song. If I like the song, I like the song. It's like, why can't you just like, why do you have to like it because someone else does? Why can't you just be like an individual?
Yes.
Why can't you just be an individual?
It's just basically like the music industry trying to force people to like something, really.
Yeah.
Or like if there's like negative news around an artist's name, then people are just jump to shit like, oh, if you support this artist, then fuck you. Maybe like a bunch of hate for that, and just like let people listen to what they want to listen to, support what they want to support.
I feel like that can get into like a whole nother topic with like, maybe some bad news coming out about somebody. And it either ruins their career or
point.
People try to ruin their career.
Well, that's like the like topic of like allegations, like in general, especially like sexual allegations.
I feel like that could be another topic
that's another
too.
podcast.
I hate that so much.
That's got to be another podcast too, because I feel like we all probably have some pretty passionate things to say about
yes,
that.
Yes, I definitely do.
Especially as like millennial guys.
Yes.
No kidding. So, all right. Well, let's just mark that down as like a future topic too, because I feel, or we can get into it now. Whatever.
I'd be fine to get into.
Let's get into it.
And you both know. You both know what I'm thinking about right now.
Go ahead.
Shit like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I get it.
I am a huge XXXTentacion fan, and he has like allegations to him that he supposedly beat a girl or whatever. They're allegations.
Yeah.
Alleged, meaning it's not proven. It's not proven.
Now he's dead.
Now he died, and that's another thing. He dies, and people wait to talk shit even more after the man is dead.
Yeah.
And then it's like when they have negative allegations to their name, it's like it's not even them that has to face hate. It's like their fans have to suffer for it too, and I hate that shit.
Yeah, just like keeping that on the topic of like mob mentality or whatever. That's just literally people like just kind of like the popular view kind of almost forces people, or maybe in their minds forces them to be like somebody might be like, oh, I like this artist or whatever, and somebody's like, no, you can't do that because they're a horrible person. They're like, oh, I didn't know. Okay, yeah, they're bad. Yeah,
well, that's like, okay, so that could get into another conversation about like separating like the person from like the product that they create,
which I think is so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a lot of things.
Well, that's a big thing with like when people look up to other people, like, or athletes and musicians, whatever, as role models. It's like,
never meet your heroes, kids.
Yeah, you have to realize that like,
they're people.
You can look up to these people as like your role models, but like don't put all your hopes in them because you're gonna get disappointed. Yes. Like 100%.
Because people are people, and people are going to make mistakes, and people who have power and money are going to make more mistakes because they have that.
Well, like what you need to do instead is like find a person that you want to have as like a role model or whatever, and like take the good from them that they can provide from you, and just ignore everything else. Why is that like? Why can't that be like, why can't that be something you do like with an artist or whatever? Like maybe there was like, I'm sure there are artists out there that have done like horrible things, like, but you can still like their music.
Like I know for one thing, for me, like as a golf fan, Tiger Woods.
Oh yeah, certainly.
Like I mean, I've always liked to watch him because he's really good. Like he's fun to watch, but it's like some people will be like, oh, like, he's horrible because he like cheated on his wife like 17 times or something. I don't even, but it's just like, no, I'm just trying to watch golf.
It's like I don't watch golf to like learn about like Tiger Woods. Like
I don't care about his life. It's just like he's playing, he's doing good. It's exciting to watch.
And he's and he's an amazing golfer.
He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah. So that can certainly apply to anything too.
X was a positive influence on me. I loved his music. I knew about bad stuff that he did in the past, but that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like how people grow up and whatnot.
True.
And I know with how his living situation growing up, it just just kind of makes sense that he
Yeah.
did the stuff that he did. Not that it was good,
Yeah.
but then like he seemed to make that realization and was all about becoming a better person. But
Well, another example I just thought of is like, there's like an episode of there's like that episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob and Patrick walk out of the Coliseum holding hands. I remember like after my parents saw that, they're like, "You're not allowed to watch SpongeBob anymore."
Oh,
and I'm like,
because they're quote unquote.
yeah, and I'm like,
quote unquote.
but like literally when I was like 12 years old, my thought was like,
It's funny, right?
it's supposed to be like funny. Like,
That's the
point.
they're not actually gay.
Like,
it's just
yeah.
a joke.
Like the reason they did that, them holding hands, because it's
Yeah.
funny and weird, and like it's not like saying, "Oh, look, we're endorsing this." It's like
Yeah.
saying, "Look, they're holding hands." That's funny because it's not supposed to happen.
And like, why can't
I don't know.
like, and you like that? Well, that
Anything they're making fun of gay people. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like,
well, that,
honestly,
yeah. Well, that like that
it might
goes
be
back to
implied that they're gay, but like it's SpongeBob.
Well, that goes to the
it's
like
not though.
that goes back to the conversation of like being able to separate like that moment in the show from like the rest
every
of the
other
show,
moment in
from
the
every
show.
other moment in the
Yeah.
show, because like I don't think there is another. I can't think of another moment where they'd be like gay or whatever.
It's not
but-
like they're sitting around being like, oh, you know, like we're in a relationship.
Yeah, it's not like.
Hey
you know,
Pat, we're in a relationship.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't happen.
It's not like they're like going on dates
I mean-
and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, I guess like another episode could be the one where they like raise the baby
Oh
clam.
well, that is
Yeah.
clearly.
But
like,
that was clearly a joke.
clearly comedy.
That was such a joke.
It's like like.
But I could see like somebody who's really sensitive about that kind of stuff
Yeah.
being like, ooh, like two fathers, no siree.
Yeah, well, like that's the thing about like, you should raise your children to be the kind of people that are smart enough. Instead of telling your kids, no, you can't watch that anymore.
Yeah.
You should be able to say to your kids, you know, if you're like, you know, radically against homosexuality or whatever, then you could say, hey kids, you know, like we don't agree with that moment in the show, but like just realize that, you know, that's probably not representative of the show like in its entirety, and so just keep that in mind and keep watching. Like,
Yeah.
that would make your children like more mature in and of themselves, because when they get into adulthood, like the parents aren't going to be there like
Yeah.
looking over their shoulder.
Because obviously it's not like SpongeBob SquarePants
Yeah.
stands for
Yeah,
homosexuality.
yeah.
Like that's not the point.
Yeah,
It's a comedy show for children.
and I feel like that could be said about anything. Like, just teach your children how to separate like with their like role models, take the good from that you can get from them, you know, and then just ignore everything else. Like, why do you have to?
Or like even like what if it's like some type of teen show, like there actually is like a gay character or something. Like what would you think about that? Like if, like
I mean,
That's
not
real
gonna
life.
be. That's not gonna.
There's gonna be gay people
gonna
in
say,
real
that's
life.
like-
I'm asking you that because I dealt with what you said about SpongeBob. Only
Yeah.
I watched a show called Degrassi.
Yeah.
And there were like gay characters. My mom was like all feeling some type of way about that. Like, oh, I don't know how I feel about you watching the show. It was like,
Well,
That's
gay
weird.
character.
That's weird.
well, that's
Yeah,
like you
I-
can't. I mean, you're gonna have to interact with like gay people in real life. So
Yeah.
You can't shelter your
You
kids
can't-
forever, man.
well, that's like. I mean, that's another point. Like
it's
I
just
told,
gay people.
Like I told my
It doesn't matter.
sister.
I'm like, I don't care that he's gay. Like
You know,
and that's not the whole show either.
Yeah.
Like it's about the show is pretty much about like a high school
Drama
high
or
school
something.
drama, teen drama, and that gay happens
People
to be a part of
exist.
that.
Well,
Like
that's
there are
like-
gay teens that go through.
That's one of
shit
the
like
things
that.
that I like best about something that Jordan Peterson says is, he says, don't shelter your children. He said, expose them to the world as much as you possibly can so that you can make them like strong and courageous
Right.
instead of them coming out of their adolescence as like these like shelter, because like I was homeschooled and I know my parents did a good job at like exposing me to the world, at least in some other. There were some things with like the SpongeBob thing when I was younger, but
Yeah.
like for the most part they did okay at like exposing me to the world rather than sheltering me, because I know a lot of homeschool kids
They're like so
that
sheltered.
they're just complete weirdos like in adulthood now, because
don't doubt it.
because they were so like sheltered as children, and they just don't know how to like operate like in the world.
Yeah, because public school obviously is a big part of how most people get acquainted with the world.
Yeah, well, like,
Yeah.
so one of my friends from back home, my friend Nate, I remember, like, I remember telling him, he came to work with me at Food Line, and, like, his mom was, like, really protective when he was, like, younger, and, like, if he heard anyone, like, cursing, like, in public, he would, like, put his hands over his, like, ears,
God.
and so, but, like, I told him, like, because he wanted to come work at Food Line, where I worked, and I said, you're gonna have to get over that, because everyone uses that language. Everyone uses that type of language. You're gonna have to get over it. And I remember him telling me, like, a couple months later,
You're
he was
lost,
like,
buddy.
well, I remember telling me a couple months later, he was like, yeah, that thing you told me about how, like, I needed to get over it. He was like, yeah, you were right.
No kidding.
I was like, yeah, of course I was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's certainly interesting.
Yeah, like, I don't know. One thing I was thinking, just like in relation to the stuff you guys were saying about like your parents reacting to like gay stuff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess my parents never really cared that much about that, but I can just remember like when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
like my mom used to watch a lot of like I don't know what the word would be, but like the HGTV type shows.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. And there's like all kinds of gay guys on
Oh
there.
yeah.
And I remember when I was younger, at one point she was like, yeah, you know, that guy, like, he's gay. You know what that means? And then she, then she like,
Oh,
told me
man.
what it was. Like, it was just one of those
That's
things
funny.
that's like, yeah, like, that's what gay is. I mean, she didn't say anything good or bad about it. She was just like, that's
Yeah.
a gay guy.
Yeah, I remember I had a cousin who came out as gay, and my family initially wasn't like, you know, they weren't like super happy about it, but like they're like, yeah, you know, we don't agree with your, like, you know, your lifestyle, but
It's
you
your
know,
lifestyle.
we're not gonna like cut you off from our lives. Like, you can still like come to our house, and like, cause he always came to our house and stuff a lot, like growing up, and they're like, yeah, like, you know, you can still come to our house, like, you know, it's fine, like,
Mm-hmm.
we're not gonna cut you off, like, you know, just cause you're gay, like, it's fine, like, and I think that was good, like, cause that happened when I was like 11 or 12, I think, and I don't remember exactly when. It might have been, I was probably older. I think I might have been 13 or 14, but then like I learned how to be okay with, like, because before that I wasn't really like around like any like gay people at all, and like, I don't know, I thought it was kind of weird at first, but now it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of how
I
I
don't
was.
really
Like,
care.
I grew up,
Yeah.
I grew up viewing it as like weird, but
Now it's like,
like
it's fine.
as I got older, I was just like, this really doesn't matter.
just-
But it was like, it was good for me to be exposed to that, because
Yeah.
now it's like something we have to deal with, like, especially being close to Asheville, which
Yeah.
has like, I think they have one of the highest gay populations in the entire United States. But
It's a very liberal
yeah,
city.
like, especially being close to Asheville, like, that's, you know, definitely something that you should be exposed to if you haven't been.
Yeah, it'd be silly to think your kids could go through life, like, I don't know, being sheltered from things.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just,
yeah,
like kids are kids, and obviously they can't just be thrown into the world, but
Mhm.
they need to be treated they need to be treated in a way that's like gives them an idea of it.
Mhm.
You can't just be like, oh, you're a kid, so, you know, shut you in this room, never let you out, and know about this other stuff, because at that point you're putting them at a huge disadvantage going into the rest of their
Oh yeah,
lives.
100%.
hmm
So
Yeah, that's why, like, I know some like parents of homeschool kids that like made their children go to like a Christian college, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong.
Christian college.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're like private universities, like Liberty.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, they made their children go to like a Christian college, and like, there's nothing wrong with Christian colleges,
No.
but like, why would you force your child?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, like forcing.
One thing I remember, like, Ben Shapiro saying is like, he went to UC Berkeley, and he was like, which is an extremely liberal college, but then like, he's really conservative, so he
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
but he was like, I'm glad I went to a really liberal college, because it helped me, like, you know, learn their viewpoints,
Right.
and learn their viewpoints so that he could better understand them and use that understanding to strengthen his own arguments and own like decision making with respect to that.
Right.
Because he was exposed to it. So it's like, you know, forcing your child to go to like, you know, liberty, which is extremely like Christian conservative, might not be the best thing, because then they're just going to be like they're just going to be in an echo chamber the whole time.
And that's bad, because like when you were talking about like you know, getting your views challenged to like maybe strengthen them or whatever, it's like if you have these views and they're not ever challenged, they're only like agreed with. For all you know, like you could be very wrong. Like there could be a lot of things you're very wrong about, and then you go into the world and it's like, it just like, I don't know.
That's the point. That is the entire point of freedom of speech.
I've met
that's the entire point.
I've met other conservative people that are just like, I'm not really interested in meeting like other conservatives. I'm more interested in meeting like people with opposing views.
Exactly. Well, that's what Ben says whenever he does like talks. He says, raise your hand if you're like a leftist or liberal, because I want you to go to the front of the line, because like I can talk to people I agree with all day, but having discussions with people who disagree with me is way more beneficial for both parties.
Absolutely.
So, and that can apply to not just politics, but any like disagreement.
Anything. Just like seeing the other side and actually seeing it, not just looking at it and saying like they're wrong, but actually seeing it. And maybe they are wrong, but maybe you're gonna learn something from what they have to say.
I hate that crap where it's just like they can't stand your viewpoint so much that their next response is just like, oh, it's not up for debate with me, you're wrong, and end of conversation.
Well, the only things that aren't up for debate are like objective truths. Everything else is like
which really any politics,
most politics does not fall into the category of
there's a lot of gray areas in politics, so you can't this is not a lot of objective truths out there.
It's not just black and white, and like whether you're liberal or conservative, like it shouldn't just be about, everything I say is fact. Fuck opposing views. Yeah,
well, that's the whole point of like, and that's the whole point of like this group of people that they call, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, they call it like the intellectual dark web. Like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, like all of them, Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, like all of these different guys that are like, well, Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein and Dave Rubin are all like more liberal, and like Ben Shapiro and like Jordan Peterson and like more conservative, but like they all talk to each other a lot and like go on each other's shows and have lots of discussions and things, because even though they have opposing views, they're all for freedom of speech and this idea that we can like, you know, freely discuss different ideas, and like instead of like people like the Young Turks or whatever, with whatever Cenk Uygur or whatever his name is, like that guy, like that, like his his organization, like they're like, you know, like screw conservatives, like we're not gonna have anything to do with them and things like that. Like they're just not about like having any type of like discussion with anybody, and it's
nasty.
It is. It is. You're just putting yourself in a just putting yourself in a hole at that point. Just putting yourself in an echo chamber, like locking yourself in a room. I don't know. It's going in your little safe space.
Like it's sad that I even have to like say this, but like the greatest thing is when like two people of opposing views can like still get along. Fine. Like, that's how it is with me and a friend here. If anything, our bond is strengthened once we realize that that's how it was. We just think it's great.
Yeah. Certainly. And that's like I said, that's the whole point of freedom of speech.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's just all that can be a real doozy sometimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think, well, social media amplifies this thing that we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
To like the highest order possible.
It's all. I mean, it really is like social media's influence, which has led us to where we are.
Well, yeah. Well, see, like
exactly.
I remember having an argument with my dad about like, he was like, you know, like back in my day, like we didn't have all this like, you know, like we didn't have all this like liberal crap, and like we didn't have all these like,
I mean,
super flamboyant like gay people like coming out all the time, and like just like, you know, those are just the better days. And
No.
I was like,
Just didn't hear about it.
they weren't better days. I'm sure the percentage of the gay population was exactly the same,
Yeah.
or comparable. I'm sure that they were still there were still gangs. There were still drugs being sold, like all this stuff. But the thing is social media didn't exist.
Yeah.
So you just didn't hear about it 75% of the time.
Right. Like, I had the same conversation with my mom before.
Like
You
all
just
the
didn't hear
stuff,
about it.
all the stuff that people were acting like is like very new now. It's not new. You're just more
Yeah.
aware of it. Because
Exactly.
Which really,
Yeah.
just the awareness is actually a good thing. I mean, it's arguable, but just like knowing that it exists, I guess, is a good thing for a start. I guess.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
But like I've had the same conversation with my mom before, where she was like adamant that like, no, back then, like things were better. Like not all this bad stuff was happening. I'm like, you're absolutely wrong.
Yeah,
like,
no, you're
it's
100%
probably
wrong.
exactly the same or better now.
Yeah, true.
We're just completely flooded with all this stuff that's going on because of social media.
Because like avenues of communication have like
It's all time high.
it's like
social media.
1,000 to 10,000 times what it was in like 1970, 80, 90.
Social media just puts all the stuff at the surface, and like
It does,
some things can be like misleading too, and then everyone wants to get their opinion out there, and everyone goes to a war and comment sections.
Oh
that
gosh.
that I'm very confident they would never say in real life.
Oh yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, definitely.
There's like a person I'm thinking of with she didn't like how I voted because like I voted for Donnie, and it's like she was like going for my neck in the like Facebook Messenger, but then I remember like I was with her in person one time.
Yeah.
She kind of just casually brought it up. It wasn't even like hateful or anything. I was like, that sounds very different.
Mm-hmm.
Like a very different vibe from how you are in social media.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then there's plenty of other examples too.
Because like when you're with somebody one-on-one human interaction, like you have more empathy with them because you're seeing their face and you're talking to them and you're like feel their presence. Whereas if you're just like if it's just like on a computer screen, you're just typing how you feel.
People get really brave.
You have no.
You're behind the screen.
And it's not even just like the fear. Like it's not even just like you don't have fear of retaliation. It's just like you don't feel that person there, so you like have no. I guess you don't have any like hesitation to do that because you don't feel like the human connection. Like I feel like the human connection can deter you from doing that right away.
It completely changes the dynamic of the conversation.
That's another thing.
100%.
Like, your phones, like social media, just takes away your human connection.
Yeah,
it certainly does.
Yeah. Well, that's. Oh yeah, like we said, that's another conversation. But
I feel like next time we'll talk about like phones and social media like a lot more. Like I feel like that can definitely be a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But, just I don't know, about all of that. Like, I mean, if we're gonna really, I mean, I guess in some people's minds, the world is just gonna keep getting worse and worse and worse because we're more and more and more like, I guess, connected with like information.
Yeah.
Oh man, this certain year was terrible. Like all these
Even
celebrities,
get me started.
all these celebrities died. Man, it's not like that hasn't happened any other year.
Oh, for real.
In 2016, this was the worst fucking year.
There was that year where there was the year that like Michael Jackson died and Billy Mays died in the same year.
2009.
Yeah.
It was like, wasn't it like a few days apart that it happened?
Yeah, like a few days apart, and I'm like, this stuff happens like all the
Everybody
time.
died. Everybody dies.
People freak out when it's
And not to mention, you know what was it, like 2016 or whatever, like a bunch of celebrities died.
Yeah.
Not to mention, it's just another thing that just like gets me going every time. It's like you like get mad at this like arbitrary unit of time for killing your celebrity.
Oh god.
Oh, because like January 1st, 2017, we're safe, guys. Nope, we're good. That bad year is gone.
Oh, no.
It's
I
arbitrary.
mean, it is.
And
Yeah,
if anything, this year was like the worst year for me of like musicians I like dying, but that's not 2018's fault.
2018 is a menace. It needs to be stopped.
2018
Needs to be stopped.
Oh
Well, that's. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has a really, really good quote, and he says that the universe is not, what does he say? The universe is not obligated to make sense to you. It's not obligated to make itself like, you know, fully like known to you. Like, it's just like,
no, I mean, it's up to you to figure that out, I guess, like, or not figure it out, whatever. Like, it's not like, it doesn't have to make sense to you. It's under no obligation to make sense to you whatsoever. Things happen.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, it just, things happen.
Sometimes I had that conversation with my mom the other day about like, sometimes things just happen because they happen.
No kidding.
It doesn't have to be for any particular reason. Sometimes things
not
just
everything
happen.
is fate.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
that's another thing I hate about social media. Is all these comments, like.
Yeah. Well, like my mom and like my parents, like me, like growing up like Christian, like my mom was talking about like how like, you know, she'll often say like, well, something good happens, and then like she correlates it with like something that like she prayed for, and I'm like, and then she like automatically assumed like, you know, God answered prayer, and I'm like, okay, that might be true, but you don't know for sure, like,
right.
and it very well might be true, but like you can't know for sure, and
obviously,
well, and it's like I'm not even talking about like praying for something, and she'll just look for like any little thing, and I'm like,
any way to like
maybe that's not
right?
the answer that you thought you were gonna get. Maybe it's gonna come later. Like, you shouldn't just assume a correlation where there could be none.
Right, and I feel like that's the kind of thing with that topic. It's just like, after the fact, I guess it's just like human nature to want to like put some rhyme or reason to what happened.
Exactly, yeah.
Like it's like you want to look back and say, and it happens all the time in all kinds of things. It's like you look back and say, oh, but of course, this happened because of this. And it's like, well, no, it's just this happened and this happened. I don't know.
I just kind of look at it more logically. Like, I had a friend from high school that passed away, like, maybe it's been like a month or like a few weeks ago now. It's like, the reason it happened was because of like drunk driving and like not wearing a seatbelt. And just like, to me, there's like no other reason for it other than like certain actions that happened before what happened. I don't see it as any other reason except for that.
Like, a good example would be like, maybe you're like praying for like a new job or something like that, and then you want like a new job, and then like maybe like a week later, like a job comes open that seems like really interesting to you, and like, and you just automatically assume, oh, like that's the answer to my prayer or whatever. But it's like, you need to be able to separate, okay, is this just, you know, do I like this because I like it, or do I like it because
I'm searching for something?
Yeah. So it's like, you have to be able to separate, you know, it's with that conversation, like, did this happen because I prayed for it, or was it just coincidence? And that, like, I think that's, and that doesn't just apply to like prayer or like religion or anything like that. It can apply to anything. Maybe you're just like thinking about, you know, how great it would be to have some new job, and then it's like, oh, like the universe heard like my thoughts or whatever, because I definitely know people like that too.
Yeah.
And like you said, not everything has to be fate. Sometimes things just happen because they happen.
Yeah.
And
I just don't like that.
I don't either.
Thinking about it.
I don't either.
Yeah. And like, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with like praying for things. Like, I definitely like have like utilized prayer, but like my point is like, don't always assume correlation when there might not be any.
Oh yeah, of course.
So,
Totally get it. Yeah.
Like almost like when I hear about stuff happening because it was like fate or whatever, it just makes me think of like they're looking at it like it's a TV show or something.
Yeah, like they're looking at it like one thing I just always think of, because I know like at one point I was like taking like English literary class or whatever, is like people try to look at it like a literary analysis.
Yeah.
Like when you're analyzing something like a poem or a story or something, like you're gonna look for these little clues and little hints that, like, whether it's like foreshadowing or what have you, just all this kind of different stuff. And it's like people try to put that in real life.
Yeah.
And where it doesn't fit, because this isn't an artistic creation. This isn't. It's just life. It's just occurrences.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things that Christians do is they'll find some area that science has yet to explore, and then they'll fill that gap with God. And I'm like, okay, that's not
it's
a good
asking
thing.
For trouble.
That's not a good thing to do, because there's some quote from some like Greek philosopher, or Greek astronomer or something like that. I think he was a philosopher. He says, like, I observe like the windings of the heavens to and fro, and I can only stand in the presence of Zeus himself. And so, like, he's assuming that, like, because there's something happening. I think he was specifically referring to, like, it's called the retrograde of Mercury. Mercury like goes back and forth in the sky, and none of the other planets have that behavior.
Yeah.
But we know exactly why now Mercury has that behavior. It can be explained completely scientifically and mathematically. Right. But someone who didn't understand that at the time wanted to blame it on, his God. And Christians, especially fundamentalist Christians, especially do that a lot. And I'm like, okay, like, it's natural to want to, like, assume that any area that is unexplored by science, maybe it has something to do with God, but that's a dangerous game to play, because, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example. I don't know. Cancer's a really big one. Like, there'll be like,
how so?
Like prayer circles, like in churches and stuff. People be like praying for like people who have cancer, and like that's great. I think that's a great thing. But
but like what?
But like maybe, and sometimes people like assume the reasons for like somebody getting cancer. Like I've heard this in a lot of churches, that like maybe like their life is like, maybe they did something wrong that like caused them to get cancer, which biblically is not even accurate. First of all, that's not even accurate biblically. But like a lot of people, there's a lot of churches that have like that I've heard do that, and like biblically that's actually not accurate.
So like some people are out there saying like, oh, you did something bad, like God is punishing you, like you deserve.
Yes,
this.
exactly.
That's so bad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Oh my God.
It's awful. But like my point is like, well, we don't know a whole lot of the things right now that do cause cancer.
Yeah.
So they assume they fill in that gap with their understanding of their religion, and like what?
Right, the reason I was saying a minute ago, like that's asking for trouble, is because I feel like when you do that, it kind of creates this natural like almost like war between religion and science or something.
Exactly, and that shouldn't exist.
And like when these scientists or whatever are like working to discover this, it's like these religious people are like, no, like this is God, you can't mess with that.
I know, it's crazy.
It's bad. It's bad stuff.
Like that shouldn't. This war between religion and science just should not exist.
It should go hand in hand.
They should. Yeah. And I think that's what I keep telling my. That's what I like keep trying to explain to like other Christians that I've met, and like people in my family too. Like, don't, like that conversation I had with my mom. Like, don't just fill in every gap in science with God. Like, just because it can't be explained with science yet doesn't mean that it won't be someday. And science isn't all-knowing, or it's not like perfect, and certainly has its flaws, and I'm sure there will probably be some things that might just go unanswered, and you just have to be okay with that, I think. And like I don't know, I think people just want some sort of like closure about certain things within themselves, and they use that knowledge of whatever their religion may be, or whatever their previous thought process may be, to fill in that gap. And that's a dangerous thing to do. And it's also not teaching, like, if you teach that type of thought to your kids too, like, you're not teaching them to think for themselves. You're not teaching them to think for themselves. You're just teaching them to conform.
Right.
So yeah.
It goes back to conformity.
It does, yeah. So.
But yeah.
Well, do we have anything else?
I don't know. We've gone on for well over an hour now. I feel like, we could probably put it to bed right there. I feel like we had some great things to say.
Oh, that was good.
This time.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And I feel like we already definitely have some ideas for what we can say at a future podcast. So
yeah.
I mean, if you enjoyed this podcast, let us know what you think. Let us know what you think about the topics we said. I mean, it's definitely something that can start a dialogue.
Yeah. Maybe suggest things you'd want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. But anyway, I guess with that's the end of the third Balsam Podcast, and we'll see you real soon.